On First at 9 this Friday, the 9th of May 2025. First American Pope. Cardinal Robert Prevost elected the first American Pope. Assumes the papal name Leo XIV. New pontiff appears to be following in the footsteps of predecessor Pope Francis. Aerial tragedy. Sri Lanka Air Force helicopter crashes into Maduroya Reservoir. 4 special forces and 2 Air Force personnel killed in the crash. Delayed response. Police, Child Protection Authority and Ministry of Women and Child Affairs launch probes into suicide of a 16-year-old girl in Kotahena following alleged sexual abuse. Opposition criticizes government's lackluster response. Government accuses opposition of politicizing the incident. Power vacuum. Opposition parties in talks regarding Colombo mayoral candidate.
Cinec Campus Open Day. May masa 3 වැනි දින උදෑසන 9 සිට Cinec Campus පරිශ්‍රයේදී.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9, Sri Lanka's most trusted news source. I'm Tatyara joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. We begin with your top story. Cardinal Robert Prevost was elected the 267th Pope, making him the first American leader of the Catholic Church. He assumed the papal name Leo XIV. Pope Leo, who has been vocal about issues such as the plight of migrants, appears to be in the mode of his predecessor Pope Francis, who is remembered as the People's Pope for his outreach on those on society's margin.
Pope Francis, the first Latin American leader of the Roman Catholic Church, died on the 21st of April at the age of 88. Following the traditional 9-day mourning period for the late Pope, 133 cardinal electors from around the world gathered at the Sistine Chapel on the 7th of May to elect a new Pope in a secretive ballot known as the Papal Conclave. A 2/3 majority is required to elect a Pope. If no one reaches that threshold, another vote is held and after each round, ballots are burnt. If black smoke appears from a chimney on top of the Sistine Chapel, it means no Pope has been chosen. White smoke signals the Catholic Church has a new pontiff. The first vote of the conclave ended on the 7th of May with black smoke emerging from the Sistine Chapel's chimney. Last morning, the cardinals resumed the process for the second day, and yet again before lunchtime in Rome, black smoke signaled no decisive outcome from the morning's round of 2 votes. However, last afternoon, white smoke emerged after another vote less than 24 hours after the conclave began. The crowd who were waiting for hours in St. Peter's Square erupted in jubilation. A senior cardinal uttered the words Habemus Papam, Latin for we have a Pope. Robert Francis Prevost, aged 69, was announced as the 267th occupant of the throne of St. Peter, and he will be known as Leo XIV. The newly elected Pope made his first public appearance standing on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica.
Here we are. Hopefully the photo of Lanka. Very special moment. Thanks, smiles. At the same level as the Lord.
La pace sia con tutti voi. Fratelli, sorelle carissimi.
Peace be with you all, beloved brothers and sisters. This is the first greeting of the risen Christ, the Good Shepherd, who gave his life for God's flock.
Pope Leo celebrated his first Mass as the pontiff today at the Sistine Chapel with his cardinal electors. Born in Chicago in 1955 to parents of Spanish and Franco-Italian descent, Prevost served as an altar boy and was ordained in 1982. Although he moved to Peru 3 years later, he returned regularly to the US to serve as a pastor and a prior in his home city. In 2014, the late Pope Francis made him Bishop of Chiclayo in Peru. In January 2023, he became Archbishop, and within a few months, Francis made him a cardinal. He is the first American pontiff in the 2000-year history of the Catholic Church. Pope Leo spent 2 decades working in Peru's poorest enclave and frequently appeared to be in the mold of Pope Francis, who carried a legacy as the People's Pope for his outreach to those on society's margins. During his papacy, Francis opened more leadership roles to women than did any previous pontiff, and Leo has expressed similar views about women within the Catholic Church. Pope Leo has also addressed the global climate crisis and expressed concern for Venezuelan migrants in Peru following the path paved by his predecessor. However, his views on LGBTQ+ communities might be in contrast to Pope Francis. With the election of the new Pope, the world debates the importance he would give to Gaza's tiny Christian community in a time of global uncertainty and escalations of war. US President Donald Trump celebrated the election of the US-born Pope.
What greater honor could there be? And we were a little bit surprised, very happy. It was just a great, absolutely great honor.
Meanwhile, Sri Lankan President Anura Dissanayake congratulated the new Pope and wished him strength and wisdom to guide the faithful.
Now, a Bell 212 helicopter belonging to the Sri Lanka Air Force crash-landed into the Maduru oil reservoir at around 8:12 a.m. today. The SLAF carrier had 12 personnel on board at the time of the crash, and all 12 individuals were rescued and subsequently hospitalized for immediate treatment. Unfortunately, 4 Special Forces personnel and 2 Air Force helicopter gunmen tragically succumbed to their injuries.
The Bell 212 helicopter belonging to the No. 7 Squadron at the Sri Lanka Air Force Base Hingurakgoda had taken off from the Hingurakgoda base at approximately 6:46 a.m. this morning. The helicopter's mission was to transport soldiers for a demonstration at the passing out parade of the Special Forces at the Army Training School Maduroya. As per Air Force sources, the helicopter had taken 6 persons on board at around 7:08 a.m. this morning, thereby bringing the total number of individuals on board to 12. Owing to an emergency situation, the pilots had to execute an emergency landing, during which the helicopter crashed into the Maduroya reservoir approximately at around 8:12 a.m. Air Force and Army personnel took prompt measures to recall all personnel on board the helicopter. The Air Force confirmed that all 8 persons were taken to the Divisional Hospital Aralaganvilla, while 8 of the injured who were already in critical condition were later transferred to the District General Hospital Polonnaruwa. Unfortunately, 6 of the injured personnel succumbed to their injuries while receiving treatment. The deceased were identified as 4 Special Forces personnel, Sergeant Tusita Varna of Balangoda, Corporal Lakmal Pereira of Katana, Corporal Prasad Premaratna of Kurunagala and Corporal Vimukti Dasanayaka of Matale, and 2 Sri Lanka Air Force helicopter gunmen, Battalion Sergeant Sanat Udekumara and Corporal Madhuranga Metruan. The 6 other injured personnel are reportedly receiving treatment at the intensive care unit of the District General Hospital Polonnaruwa. Commander of the Sri Lanka Air Force, Air Marshal Bandhu Edirisinghe, has appointed a 9-member committee to probe the accident. A similar incident was reported on the 21st of March when a Sri Lanka Air Force K-8 pilot training aircraft crashed into a coconut estate in Minuangete, which subsequently caught on fire and was destroyed.
Authorities have launched investigations into the tragic suicide of a 16-year-old girl in Kotahena following massive public outcry yesterday. The parents of the deceased alleged that sexual abuse by a teacher at the victim's former school and subsequent public humiliation by a private tutor led to the tragic incident.
A 16-year-old girl took her own life at her residence in Galpotta, Kotahena on April 29th. The girl, who had sustained critical injuries after falling from the 6th floor of an apartment complex, was immediately admitted to the Colombo National Hospital but later succumbed to her injuries. Following her death, her parents spoke to the media and revealed that their daughter had been pushed to the tragic decision after being humiliated at a private tuition institute over an incident of sexual abuse she had faced at her former school in Bambalapitiya. The victim's parents further revealed that despite the school denying the allegations, a doctor confirmed that their daughter had been sexually molested. Meanwhile, the police stated that the teacher allegedly involved in the abuse had been arrested and placed in remand custody but was later released on bail. The police also mentioned that a case had been filed and statements had been recorded from about 10 individuals. However, police noted that the victim's parents had not filed a formal complaint regarding the incident at the private tuition institute until after the victim's death. Following this, a protest was staged by several social activists near the victim's residence yesterday. The protesters also held demonstrations near the private tuition institute and her former school in Bambalapitiya, causing traffic congestion near Duplication Road. Later, the acting director of education for the Western Province arrived at the scene and engaged in discussions with the protesters.
පළවෙනි එක තමයි මේ ගුරුවරයාට විරුද්ධව ඉතාම දැඩි ක්‍රියාමාර්ග ගන්න අවශ්‍ය කටයුතු මේ වෙනකොටත් කරලා තියෙනවා. පළවෙනි පියවර විදිහට මෙතුමාව වහාම ක්‍රියාත්මක වන පරිදි පුත්තලමට ස්ථාන මාරු කරලා තියෙනවා. ඊළඟට තව පොලිස් වාර්තාවක් අපිට ලබා ගන්න තියෙනවා අධ්‍යාපන අමාත්‍යාංශයට මේ සස්පෙන්ඩ් කරන එකට. එතකොට මේ හෙට දවස ඇතුළත මෙයාගේ වැඩසටහනක් කිරීම සිදු කරනවා.
Subsequently, the protesters held a peaceful march towards the presidential secretariat. The General Secretary of the Ceylon Teachers Union, Joseph Stalin, also took part in the march. Later, several protesters were invited for discussions with a representative of the presidential secretariat. Issuing a statement yesterday, the Ministry of Education noted that an explanation has been called from the principal of the victim's former school regarding the victim's demise. The statement further read that the teacher in question had been transferred and that disciplinary action will be taken based on police investigations. Meanwhile, Minister of Women and Child Affairs Saroja Polraj made a statement in Parliament yesterday regarding the incident, which drew criticism from several parties.
We have obtained a judicial medical officer's report on this incident. I have asked the parents of the child to file a formal complaint with the National Child Protection Authority. I even asked them to come and meet me with a petition, but they have not come forward so far. We cannot serve justice through social media. We cannot take control of the judicial system. Therefore, I request that you act in accordance with the law. This situation has been ongoing since last year. What I want to make clear is that the report was not provided by us. Investigations are currently underway and the parents will meet us tomorrow morning.
Police say that the family of the victim aren't supporting the investigation into the incident due to involvement of non-governmental organizations. In the meantime, the National Child Protection Authority and the Ministry of Women and Child Affairs held a discussion this afternoon regarding the incident. Issuing a statement, the National Child Protection Authority highlighted that a special investigation has been initiated regarding the victim's death.
Cinec Campus Open Day May masa 3 වැනි දින උදෑසන 9 සිට Cinec Campus පරිශ්‍රයේදී.
Meanwhile, Parliament heated up with a contentious debate on the suicide of the schoolgirl in Kotahena, with the opposition legislator Mujibur Rahman accusing the government of inaction, highlighting that authorities were informed of the victim being subjected to sexual abuse as early as last year. However, Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya asserted that government is allowing relevant authorities to conduct independent investigations and requested the opposition not to politicize the incident.
The sexual assault of the schoolgirl was reported by a doctor to the police. The National Child Protection Authority was also not properly informed about the situation.
We should not use these incidents as an opportunity for political involvement. This incident is about a child. We have failed as a society when a 13-year-old makes the decision to end her life. When this incident occurred, it was not reported properly. At present, the ministry has called for an explanation from the principal of the school, asking why it was not the incident and the teacher allegedly involved in the incident were not reported.
Before filing a complaint with the National Child Protection Authority, the Minister of Women and Child Affairs Saroja Savitri Polraj called a female Deputy Inspector General of Police and informed her to probe the incident. Therefore, the minister did not wait for a formal complaint to be filed before taking action. On the other hand, it is not as if the parents cannot file a complaint. They live in Colombo. That is why the minister suggested filing a complaint would still be necessary and effective. In incidents like this, there are many aspects to examine and address. Following the murder of a child in Divlapitiya, the influence of social media led to the imprisonment of an innocent man. The principal threatened the parents to transfer the child to another school. The accused teacher was only transferred after yesterday's protests.
This is incorrect. The teacher was not transferred because of yesterday's protests. The explanation was requested prior to yesterday.
The child attended tuition classes conducted by a friend of the accused teacher who humiliated her in front of the class, which led to depression and ultimately her tragic decision after realizing she could not face society. Special police protection has been provided to this tutor.
An investigation is currently underway. We do not yet know what actually happened in this incident. We cannot act based on rumors. That's why we have authorities and an investigative process in place for such situations. We must not interfere in this process but allow it to proceed independently.
We do not make statements based on what is said on social media. We have our feet on the ground and do not need to refer to social media. The opposition leader has spoken twice and several opposition members have also commented. We are all aware of what they are trying to do. They are clearly attempting to exploit the child's death for their own gain. The Aruna newspaper published a story claiming that one of the ruling party's electorate organizers is accused in connection with the schoolgirl's death. This is completely false. Such an individual is not connected to the case. I request that this statement be removed from the Hansard. The incident occurred on October 23rd last year. It was reported to the police on December 8th of the same year. However, the accused teacher was arrested only on January 8th this year and released on bail within 2 days. According to the establishment's code, if someone is involved in child abuse, that individual must be suspended immediately. But that did not happen. He was transferred on the 8th of this month, which shows the Ministry of Education only took action after a massive public outcry. It has been 6 months since the Prime Minister assumed duties as the Minister of Education. So why didn't her internal mechanisms address this within those 6 months? The parents took to the streets because they did not receive justice. That is why we say there is a systemic failure. Lakshman Nipunarachi mentioned a newspaper article which mentioned that your party's organizer was accused in the incident. That accusation did not surface out of nowhere. According to the parents' statements, the tutor humiliated the victim in front of others regarding the assault that took place at her school. I did not politicize this incident, nor did I mention that the accused was your party's organizer. However, special police protection has been provided to this individual. If he were a member of the SJB or any other party, you would have put him in jail.
A motion to reduce privileges granted to parliamentarians, former heads of state and their widows was presented to Parliament today. The proposal was presented as a private member's motion by Samvega Jana Balawegaya parliamentarian Hesha Vithanage.
I would like to present a motion to Parliament that the government should take relevant actions to hold discussions with parliamentarians of the government and the opposition to reduce, discontinue or take other suitable measures in regard to the long-standing privileges granted to the members of the Sri Lanka Parliament, former heads of state and their widows. We can remember parliamentarians of the incumbent government pledging to implement these measures within 2 weeks of assuming power, stating that it was a very simple procedure. We have waited 7 months to see if the government will fulfill their promises. I am grateful that I got to suggest this at a crucial time when the people have shown the government the outcome of not fulfilling their pledges at the recent local government elections. I think I have become the only person who doesn't use the parliament cafeteria now. The same goes to MP Chaminda Vijayasiri. As far as I know, I am the only person in Parliament who has not obtained a residence. I am not against parliamentarians being provided with that, but they should not be deceiving the public. They should pay the price for lying and misleading the people. I would like to state that engaging in politics should not mean lying and deceiving the people. Now the government is thinking that they should also receive these privileges, so they are following the same patterns of the previous governments. As the government is insisting that they have to cut down on security, I would like to challenge the government to see how the Prime Minister is travelling on the road. Now you have the opportunity to inform the public how the relevant further measures will be taken regarding the motion I presented.
The
NPP was the first to bring up the ideology of reforming political culture and reducing privileges. Now the opposition has fallen to the state where they have to carry on the concepts introduced by us. Why hasn't anyone from the government stood up and given a definite date or procedure to implement these measures yet? They brag that they use inexpensive vehicles, but the reality is different. We would like to urge certain parliamentarians not to embarrass themselves.
Welcome back. A crisis has arisen regarding establishing power within the Colombo Municipal Council as opposition parties have collectively got elected more councillors than the ruling party, the National People's Power. Against this backdrop, opposition parties held discussions on regarding possible opposition mayoral candidates for Colombo. Out of the 339 local government authorities, the Colombo Municipal Council is considered the most prominent local government authority within the island. The National People's Power secured victory in the Colombo Municipal Council for the first time ever, paving the way for its representation through 48 local government councillors. Meanwhile, all other parties collectively will be represented by a total of 69 local government councillors, thus bringing the number of councillors representing the all other parties higher than that of the governing party, National People's Power. Thereby, a crisis has risen regarding the establishment of power within the Colombo Municipal Council. Minister Dr. Nalinda Jayatissa said yesterday that the NPP would establish power within the council as it possesses the most councillors. Against this backdrop, the Sri Lanka Podujana Peremuna's Politburo convened at the official residence of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa at Vijayarama. Discussions focused on SLPP's future plans on LG authorities.
We will conduct further discussions, consider public opinions and convene another Politburo meeting next week in order to arrive at a decision. Discussions pertaining to this agreement were held yesterday and the night before. That particular discussion was successful. Discussions held on establishing power collaboratively in every possible LG authority were successful. These LG authorities also include Colombo. I believe this will show progress. There is a critical situation within the Colombo Municipal Council. Our representatives were reached out to regarding such offers. The so-called corruption-free government is striking political deals. If they cannot establish power, they should firmly face the situation. As the Sarvajana Balaya, we will provide our support to mayoral candidates if they are capable of providing expected services. This decision will not be a common one. It will change from LG authority to LG authority. Our decision regarding the Colombo Municipal Council is to hold discussions with opposition parties to appoint a mayor and deputy mayor. The votes we received were in opposition to the government. We will execute our plans accordingly.
Now in your business news, the United States and Sri Lanka celebrated 20 years of port security cooperation with the launch of new radiation detection equipment at Colombo's West Container Terminal yesterday. The advanced technology helps detect and prevent the movement of radioactive materials, keeping global supply chains secure and safeguarding critical transit hubs.
The United States provided new radiation detection equipment worth $500,000 to Sri Lanka's Colombo Port West Container Terminal. Earlier on March 28, US Ambassador Julie Chung commissioned new radiation detection equipment at the West Container Terminal of the Port of Colombo. The system, valued at approximately 148 million rupees, was provided through the US Department of Energy's Office of Nuclear Smuggling Detection and Deterrence under the Mega Ports Initiative. This equipment will enhance Sri Lanka's ability to detect radioactive materials, support national port security regulations, and contribute to global supply chain safety. Ambassador Chung highlighted the long-standing partnership between the US and Sri Lanka in combating nuclear smuggling, noting an investment of over $31 million since 2004. She emphasized the strategic importance of securing global transit hubs to prevent the illicit movement of nuclear materials.
Now, Sri Lanka has attracted 930,794 tourists as of the 7th of May this year, as it continues towards the target of securing 3 million tourist arrivals for this year. According to the data from Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, 33,910 tourist arrivals were recorded between the 1st and the 7th of May this year. The highest number of tourist arrivals for the month of April so far were recorded on the 1st of May with 6,311. India continues to be Sri Lanka's top source market with 10,620 tourists visiting the country, while the United Kingdom's trail in second, with 2,676 British tourists visiting the country between the 1st and the 7th of May. A significant number of tourist arrivals were also reported from the United Kingdom, China, France and Australia. The Colombo Stock Exchange ended the session flat, with the ASPI falling marginally by 10 points to close at 15,916. Despite an early uptick, the index faced a sharp intraday decline, followed by volatile movements, ultimately closing marginally in red. Downward pressure on the index was primarily driven by losses in key counters, including Cargill's, Hema's Holdings, TJ Lanka, Aitken Spence and Royal Ceramics. Sector-wise trading activity was dominated by the materials sector, which accounted for 21% of total turnover. The food, beverage and tobacco and capital goods sectors collectively contributed 32% to overall activity. Total market turnover amounted to 1.5 billion, marking a 34.5% drop from the monthly average of 24 billion, indicating a subdued trading session. Meanwhile, foreign participation turned positive with net inflows totaling 0.9 million. With that, here's a look at today's exchange rates. That's all the news we have for you tonight. Thank you. Have a great night.